The rain was relentless that night in Chicago, turning the streets into rivers of reflection under the streetlights. I almost didn't see him there, slumped against the brick wall of the alley like a discarded shadow. His clothes soaked and his face pale with confusion. "Hey, are you okay?" I called out, my voice cutting through the downpour as I approached cautiously. He looked up at me with eyes that held no recognition, no anchor to the world around him. I don't know where I am," he murmured, his voice shaky and lost. That was the moment everything changed for me. I helped him to his feet, feeling the weight of his body lean into mine for the first time, and before I knew it, I was calling an ambulance on my phone while shielding him from the worst of the storm with my jacket. At the hospital, the doctors ran every test they could. No ID, no wallet, nothing to identify him. The diagnosis came quickly: complete amnesia from blunt head trauma, possibly a hit and run or a bad fall. No family came forward despite alerts, and without insurance or a next of kin, they couldn't keep him indefinitely. I don't know what possessed me, standing there in the sterile hallway with my coat still dripping. But when the social worker asked if I could take him in temporarily as a good Samaritan, I said yes without hesitation. His name? He didn't know that either. We settled on Zachary because it was stitched on a faded tag inside his ruined leather jacket, the only clue to a life erased. My apartment in Lincoln Park was nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom with big windows overlooking the park and enough space for one person to live quietly. I was 32, a graphic designer at a small downtown firm, the kind of guy who paid his bills on time and kept his personal life private after a string of relationships that never quite worked out. Being gay in this city came with its own quiet battles, but I had my routines, my morning coffee runs, and a tight circle of friends who understood. Zachary stepped inside that first evening, water still beating on his dark hair, and looked around like the place was a miracle. "Thank you, Blake," he said softly, using the name I had given him earlier in the ER. "I feel like I can trust you. Everything else is just blank." I showed him the guest room, which was really my office with a pull-out couch, and handed him some spare clothes from my closet. He changed in the bathroom while I heated up leftover soup, the steam rising like questions neither of us could answer. That first night, he couldn't settle. I heard him pacing the small living room long after I turned in, the floorboards creaking under his restless steps. Around midnight, a soft knock pulled me from light sleep. "Blake," he whispered through the door. "Please, don't leave me alone. Can I stay in here? Just until I fall asleep." His green eyes were wide with a fear that cut straight through me. I nodded and made space on the bed, keeping a respectful distance as he curled up on the far edge, his breathing eventually evening out. I lay there staring at the ceiling, heart hammering for reasons I couldn't name yet. Who was this man? Why did his presence feel like a half-remembered song, familiar yet impossible? The next morning Zachary woke with a tentative smile, but those eyes still searched for pieces that weren't there. We spent the day at the police station filing a missing persons report that went nowhere, then at a discount store buying basics: jeans, t-shirts, a warm jacket. When he tried on a simple blue sweater, he paused in front of the mirror, fingers tracing the fabric. "This feels right," he said quietly, "like something I used to wear every day." The doctor had warned about flashes, small fragments returning without context, and I saw the frustration flicker across his face. By evening, we cooked pasta together in my tiny kitchen, laughing when the garlic bread burned because neither of us was paying attention. It felt strangely normal, like two old friends catching up, except one of us had no past to catch up on. Zachary asked about my life, genuine curiosity lighting his features as I told him about my job designing logos for local businesses, the way the city hummed with energy even in winter. I kept my own secrets close. The conservative family back in the suburbs who still sent holiday cards with careful wording about finding the right girl. The ex who had left because he couldn't handle the stairs anymore. Zachary listened without judgment, nodding as if my words were anchors for his own empty mind. As night fell again, he came to me once more. "Blake, can you sit with me? I keep dreaming of shadows, and your voice makes them go away." I sat by the couch, talking about nothing important until his eyes closed. Little did I know those simple nightly pleas were the first threads of something far bigger, something that would test every boundary I had built around my heart. My best friend Marcus called the next afternoon, voice sharp with worry. "You did what? Brought a total stranger home? Blake, that's not like you. What if he's dangerous or running from something?" I laughed it off on the phone, but doubt settled in my chest like the rain outside. Zachary seemed anything but dangerous. He helped wash dishes without being asked, folded laundry with surprising care, and shared what little he could recall. Feelings of deep loneliness, a vague sense of having lost something precious, and an inexplicable pull toward kindness. By the end of the week, the police had zero leads. "He might never remember," the officer said flatly. I decided then to let him stay longer. It was the decent thing to do, or at least that's what I told myself every time his hand brushed mine and my pulse jumped. But that next night his plea shifted slightly. "Blake, hold my hand. Feels like home." I did, and for the first time in years the quiet apartment didn't feel empty at all. Weeks slipped by in a rhythm that felt both comforting and dangerous. Mornings started with coffee on the balcony overlooking the park, Zachary asking endless questions about the world he couldn't remember. I showed him how to use my laptop, and he spent hours scrolling through news articles, hoping something would spark recognition. Nothing did, but he smiled anyway, grateful for the smallest things. "You're patient with me, Blake," he said one afternoon while we walked along the lakefront, the wind off Michigan whipping his dark hair. "Most people would have sent me back to the shelter by now." I shrugged, hands in my pockets to hide how much his words affected me. The truth was, having him there filled a space I hadn't realized was hollow. My job at the firm kept me busy with deadlines, but coming home to Zachary cooking simple dinners or watching old movies became the highlight of every day. He had a quiet humor that surfaced more each week, teasing me about my terrible taste in coffee or the way I organized my books by color. Yet every night, without fail, the plea came. "Blake, stay close tonight. The dark feels heavier when you're not near." I never refused. I'd sit on the edge of his bed or let him crash on mine, always respectful, always telling myself it was just comfort for a man lost in his own mind. But my own mind was starting to betray me. Zachary's instinctive lean toward me, the way his hand sought mine in sleep, stirred memories I had buried deep. 5 years ago, before the breakup that shattered me, I had loved a man who looked exactly like him. Same green eyes, same quiet laugh. But that man had walked away, choosing a straight life under family pressure, and I had never heard from him again. Coincidence? The universe's cruel joke? I pushed the thought away every time it surfaced. Zachary was vulnerable. Telling him anything would be wrong. My sister Emily visited unannounced one Saturday, her eyes narrowing the moment she saw Zachary folding laundry in my living room. "Blake, can we talk outside?" she asked, voice tight. We stepped onto the balcony, the city noise rising from below. "You're playing house with a stranger who doesn't even know his own name? Mom and Dad are already asking why you skipped the last family dinner. If they find out about this..." She didn't finish, but I knew the rest. Our parents' quiet disapproval of my life had always been there, polite on the surface but heavy underneath. "He's not a stranger anymore," I told her. "He's Zachary, and he's trying." She sighed, hugging me quickly. "Just be careful. People like us don't get to play savior without consequences." When I came back inside, Zachary was waiting with 2 mugs of tea. "Everything okay?" he asked, and the concern in his voice made my chest tighten. That night his plea carried new weight. "Blake, tell me about your family. I feel like I should know these things." I shared carefully edited stories, leaving out the parts about how they still hoped I'd settle down properly. He listened, then whispered, "I wish I had someone like you in my past. Someone steady." The words hung between us, and I had to excuse myself to the kitchen to steady my breathing. Work grew hectic with a big campaign, and Zachary started helping around the apartment more, even sketching ideas for my designs on scrap paper. His artistic eye surprised me. Lines flowed naturally from his hand as if muscle memory refused to stay lost. "Maybe I was a designer too," he joked one evening, but the flash of pain in his eyes told me the blankness still hurt. Marcus came over for pizza that weekend, eyeing Zachary with protective skepticism at first. By the end of the night, they were debating baseball stats like old buddies. "He's good people," Marcus admitted later on the phone. "But Blake, the way he looks at you, it's not just gratitude." I brushed it off, but the observation lodged in my mind. Zachary's nightly rituals evolved subtly. He no longer asked just to stay close. Now he wanted stories. "Tell me about your happiest memory," he'd say, curling under the blanket. I'd talk about college trips or quiet mornings in the park, and he'd fall asleep with a small smile, hand resting near mine. One Thursday, the hospital called with follow-up results. More scans, more questions, still no answers. On the walk home, Zachary stopped under a street lamp. "Blake, what if I never remember? What if this is all I get?" His voice cracked, and I pulled him into a quick hug right there on the sidewalk, the kind friends give without thinking. But it didn't feel like friendship. It felt like coming home to something I had lost long ago. That night, after the plea, he added something new. "Promise you'll be here tomorrow too. I don't want to face the blank without you." I promised, and as his breathing slowed, I lay awake wondering how much longer I could keep my own secret without breaking us both. The city lights outside flickered like warnings, but I ignored them, letting the warmth of his presence lull me into dangerous hope. The first crack in our fragile routine appeared 3 weeks later during a casual dinner with my friend group at a little Italian place in Wicker Park. Zachary had been practicing small talk all day, nervous but excited to meet people who mattered to me. Marcus brought his boyfriend Jamal, and 2 other guys from my old book club rounded out the table. Laughter flowed easily until Jamal asked Zachary about his life before the accident. The table went quiet as Zachary stared at his plate, fork frozen. "I wish I could tell you," he said softly. "Everything before Blake found me is just gone." The sympathy in everyone's eyes was genuine, but I caught the quick glance Marcus shot me, the one that said we needed to talk later. Zachary recovered quickly, steering the conversation to my latest design project, and soon the group was toasting to new beginnings. On the cab ride home, he leaned his head on my shoulder, exhausted but content. "Your friends are nice," he murmured. "They make me feel like I belong somewhere." That night, the plea came with unexpected intensity. "Blake, hold me closer. The dreams are getting louder, and I need to feel safe." I wrapped an arm around him carefully, nothing more, but my heart raced at the trust he placed in me. The next morning, a letter arrived from the police. Still no matches in any database. Zachary read it twice, then set it down with a sigh. "Maybe it's better this way," he said, but his eyes betrayed the lie. We decided to take a day trip to Millennium Park to clear our heads. The bean reflected the skyline, tourists buzzing around us, and for a few hours Zachary seemed lighter, posing for silly photos on my phone. As we sat on the grass eating hot dogs, he turned to me suddenly. "Blake, do you ever feel like you've known someone forever even if you just met?" The question hit too close. I mumbled something about déjà vu and changed the subject, but the seed was planted. Back at the apartment that evening, my sister called again, this time with our mother on the line. The conversation was polite on the surface, questions about work and health, but the undercurrent was clear. When was I bringing someone normal home for the holidays? Zachary overheard the tail end and waited until I hung up. "They don't know about me, do they?" he asked gently. I admitted the truth, explaining my family's complicated acceptance. He nodded, no judgment, just understanding. "I feel like I understand that pressure somehow," he said, rubbing his temple as if chasing a ghost memory. The nightly plea that followed carried new depth. "Blake, tell me I'm not a burden. Tell me you want me here." I reassured him honestly, and he fell asleep with his head on my chest, the steady beat of his heart syncing with mine. Work deadlines piled up, forcing late nights at the office while Zachary held down the apartment. He started leaving little notes on the fridge, simple drawings or quotes that made me smile when I got home. One night, I came in past 10 to find him waiting with reheated dinner and a movie queued up. "You work too hard," he scolded playfully. We watched in comfortable silence, but halfway through he paused the film. "Blake, I had a flash today. A kitchen like this one, someone laughing beside me. It felt warm. Like this. My stomach twisted. I knew that kitchen. It was the one in my old place where we had cooked together years ago. Still I stayed silent. Marcus cornered me at lunch the following day. Dude, you're falling for him. And he doesn't even know you two might have history. That's not fair to either of you. I argued it was impossible, that the resemblance was coincidence, but the words rang hollow even to me. That night Zachary's plea shifted again. Blake, I think I'm starting to feel something real for you. Is that crazy? I froze, then managed to say it was natural after everything we'd shared. He accepted the answer, but the air between us thickened with unspoken possibility. A week later, the first real conflict hit. A reporter from a local news station wanted to run a story on the mystery man found in the alley, hoping it might jog someone's memory. Zachary agreed reluctantly, and we sat through the interview in my living room. The segment aired that evening, and within hours my phone buzzed with messages from distant relatives. My father called directly. Son, this isn't the life we raised you for. Taking in strays and parading it on TV. The words stung, reopening old wounds about acceptance. Zachary saw my face after the call and pulled me into a hug without asking. Whatever they said, I'm here. That simple act cracked something inside me. Later, as he drifted off after his plea, I whispered into the dark what I couldn't say aloud. That I had loved him once, and the fear of losing him again was becoming unbearable. The city outside hummed on, indifferent, while inside my quiet apartment 2 hearts hovered on the edge of truth. Tension simmered through the following days like the approaching spring thaw. Zachary's flashes grew more frequent, fragments of laughter, the scent of coffee, a hand holding his in the dark. He described them to me over breakfast, eyes bright with hope and frustration. It's like pieces of a puzzle floating just out of reach, he said, stirring his cereal absently. I nodded, swallowing the truth that those pieces belonged to us. Work became my escape, long hours at the firm designing a campaign for a local LGBTQ center, ironically enough. The irony wasn't lost on me when Zachary volunteered to help with mock-ups at home, his natural talent shining through. This feels familiar, he murmured one afternoon, sketching a logo with confident strokes. My phone buzzed constantly with family texts, polite but pointed questions about the situation. Emily tried to mediate, but the pressure mounted. One evening my mother left a voicemail suggesting I come home for the weekend alone. We miss you, honey. Just you. I deleted it before Zachary could hear. The misunderstanding that nearly broke us came on a rainy Thursday. Marcus stopped by with takeout, and while I stepped out to grab drinks from the corner store, he and Zachary talked. Later Marcus pulled me aside. He asked if you two had met before. I almost told him the truth. Blake, you can't keep this up. I snapped at him for the first time in years, defending my choice to protect Zachary from confusion. When I returned, Zachary was quiet, picking at his food. That night, the plea carried hurt. Blake, do you have secrets from me? It feels like there's something you're not saying. I reassured him it was only worry about his recovery, but the lie tasted bitter. He accepted it, curling close, yet sleep came slowly for both of us. The next morning, he suggested we visit the alley where I found him, hoping the location might trigger more. We stood in the same spot under gray skies, his hand gripping mine. Nothing, he whispered, defeated. On the walk back, he stopped suddenly. Blake, what if my old life was better without me? What if I was someone who hurt people? The vulnerability in his voice made me pull him into a quiet doorway, shielding us from the drizzle. You could never be that person, I said firmly. The moment stretched, our faces inches apart, and for a second I almost kissed him. I stepped back instead, heart pounding. Family pressure peaked when my parents announced an unannounced visit to the city. They arrived at my door on a Saturday morning, smiles tight as they met Zachary. The conversation was civil at first, questions about his recovery, my work. Then my father cleared his throat. Son, we worry this arrangement isn't healthy for anyone. Zachary excused himself politely to the kitchen, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. After they left, the air felt heavy. They don't approve of me being here, he said quietly. I tried to explain without revealing too much, but the damage was done. That night's plea was raw. Blake, promise you won't send me away because of them. I don't know where I'd go without you. I promised, holding him until morning light filtered through the blinds. Work offered no relief. A big presentation loomed, and Zachary helped me rehearse late into the night, his encouragement steady. You've got this, he said, squeezing my shoulder. The touch lingered longer than necessary. A breakthrough, or what felt like one, came midweek. Zachary woke from a nightmare, sweating and calling out a name that wasn't mine. When I comforted him, he clung tighter than ever. Blake, in the dream I was kissing someone. It felt right, like it was meant to be. My breath caught. I murmured something reassuring about the mind healing itself, but inside I was unraveling. Marcus texted the next day with news that made everything worse. An old mutual friend had seen the news segment and recognized Zachary as someone from our past circle. The pieces were aligning whether I wanted them to or not. That evening Zachary cooked my favorite meal, sensing my mood. Over dessert he looked at me seriously. Whatever your secret is, I trust you. But I think I'm falling for you, Blake. Not just because you saved me, but because of who you are. The words hung there, beautiful and terrifying. I couldn't say them back, not yet. Instead I held him through another plea, the weight of unspoken history pressing down like the Chicago winter we had somehow survived together. The city lights outside blurred through unshed tears, and I wondered how much longer truth could stay hidden before it shattered everything we were building. The confrontation I had dreaded arrived without warning on a crisp autumn morning. Zachary was humming in the kitchen, flipping pancakes with growing confidence, when my phone rang with an unknown number. The voice on the other end was hesitant but familiar. A cousin from Zachary's old life who had seen the news. Is this the guy who found Zach? We thought he was gone for good. My stomach dropped. I stepped onto the balcony, heart hammering, as the cousin explained the missing history. Zachary had left town 5 years earlier after a family blow-up over his sexuality, cutting ties completely. The details matched my buried memories too perfectly. When I hung up, Zachary was waiting in the doorway, concern etched on his face. Bad news? He asked. Couldn't lie anymore. Sitting him down, I told him everything I knew, watching his expression shift from confusion to shock to quiet anger. You knew? All this time. The betrayal in his voice cut deep. He needed space, so I left for a long walk along the lake, the wind whipping tears from my eyes. Hours later I returned to find him packing a small bag. I need time to process, he said, voice steady but eyes red. Your family, my family, the lies. It's too much. The plea that night was different. He didn't ask me to stay. He asked me to let him go. I drove him to a hotel, the silence in the car heavier than any rainstorm. The days that followed were empty. My apartment echoed without his laugh, his sketches still on the fridge like ghosts. Work suffered. I missed deadlines and snapped at colleagues. Marcus and Emily took turns checking on me, offering advice I barely heard. You did what you thought was right, Emily said over coffee. But love without honesty isn't love. Zachary called once, voice distant, saying the flashes were returning faster now. Memories of arguments with his parents, a relationship that ended in heartbreak, the decision to disappear. He didn't mention us. The nightly absence hurt most. No more pleas, no more warm presents. I lay awake replaying every moment, questioning every choice. A week later he texted asking to meet at the park where we had shared our first real conversation. He looked thinner, eyes wiser. I remember now, he said quietly. Not everything, but enough. We were together, Blake. I left because I was scared of what my family would do, scared of myself. Tears came then, for both of us. We talked for hours, unpacking the pain, the silence, the accidental second chance. He admitted the pleas had been his subconscious reaching for what his mind had forgotten. Every night I begged because some part of me knew you were home. Family fallout followed. My parents learned the full story through Emily and issued ultimatums that I quietly refused. Zachary's cousin helped reconnect him with a supportive aunt, but the road to full acceptance was long. We didn't rush back into anything. Instead, we rebuilt slowly. Coffee dates, long walks, honest conversations about fears and dreams. One evening he stayed late, and the old plea returned, softer now. "Blake, can I stay? Not because I'm lost, but because I choose you." I said yes, and this time there were no secrets between us. The city felt brighter, the apartment warmer. Work improved as I channeled the experience into designs for a community center project celebrating second chances. Zachary started therapy, piecing together the rest of his identity with professional help. Misunderstandings still surfaced, small arguments about trust, but each one strengthened us. His family sent a cautious letter, opening a door we both approached carefully. Through it all, the growth was real. I learned to stop protecting people from the truth, and Zachary learned to forgive his past self. Winter returned to Chicago, blanketing the streets in fresh snow that mirrored the clean slate we were creating together. Zachary moved back in officially, not as a stranger but as a partner choosing every day to stay. Mornings now began with shared coffee and quiet planning for the future. Maybe a small gallery show for his returning artwork, maybe a trip to meet his aunt together. The nightly pleas had transformed into something mutual and joyful. "Blake, hold me because I love you," he'd whisper, and I'd answer without hesitation. My family remained distant, but Emily visited often, slowly warming to the idea as she saw our happiness. Society's judgments still lingered in sideways glances on the street, but we faced them hand in hand, stronger for the journey. One evening we attended a support group for LGBTQ survivors of memory loss and trauma, Zachary sharing his story with quiet courage. "I lost everything once," he told the circle, "but I gained something better, a love that survived forgetting." Applause followed, and I squeezed his hand, proud beyond words. The final high point came during a quiet dinner at home. Zachary set down his fork, eyes shining. "Blake, I remember it all now. The good, the bad, the reason I left. And I choose you again, not out of need but out of want." We talked late into the night, mapping out dreams. A bigger place someday, maybe fostering others who felt lost, building a life free from old shadows. The sacrifices had been worth it, the misunderstandings necessary stepping stones to real trust. Friendship with Marcus and the group deepened, becoming a chosen family that celebrated every milestone. As spring approached, Zachary started volunteering at the same LGBTQ center I had designed for, his identity fully reclaimed and embraced. The emotional growth was visible in both of us. I no longer hid parts of myself, and he no longer feared the past. Our love, tested by amnesia and prejudice, emerged resilient and true. Looking back at the alley where it all began, we sometimes walked there on quiet evenings, grateful for the accident that had rewritten our story. The city lights reflected in the puddles now seemed like stars guiding us forward. Through every conflict, every plea, every choice, we had learned that identity isn't just memory. It's the courage to keep choosing love, true or false. Love can truly conquer the loss of all memories and build a stronger future from the ruins of the past.